Hello and welcome back to Fluttering Butterflies. My name is Michelle, and for this video I just wanted to do a really quick roundup of some of the books that I've been reading this year. There are three types of books that I like to talk about and support here on Fluttering Butterflies. The first is UKYA. I've always loved UKYA, supporting it, reading it, talking about it, and that will be something that continues. The second sort of area that I'd like to explore are those books that sit outside the YA region that I've been reading lately. You can see that with my poetry roundups. I'd also like to talk about some of the nonfiction that I've been reading, and also books that have elements of diversity within it, whether those be race, mental illness, LGBT storylines, that sort of thing. So those are the three areas that I'd really like to read, and thankfully I'm going to be sharing with you 5 books that I've been reading in 2016 that sort of fit into those different areas. So the first book that I wanted to talk to you about is Sophie Someone by Hayley Long. Hayley Long is a British author. This is a YA book. It's a really cute, like, little hardback book. The only thing that I knew about this book before I picked it up is that Hayley Long chose to play a little bit with her language. So her main character, Sophie, she's trying to tell this story. She's trying to tell us, the readers, something that has happened to her that is very significant in her life. It feels a little bit traumatic. So for that reason, she decides to tell it in her own way. And in order to do that, she mixes up words entirely. And it can be a little bit difficult to read. I thought that I would struggle a little bit more. I think it's pretty clear contextually what the words are that she's trying to say as you're reading it. In the first few pages or the first few paragraphs, you might struggle with it, but in the end, I ended up just reading it completely fluently. I wasn't tripping over the different words at all. It just flew really naturally. And I find that really strange, the way that how easy it was to adapt to Sophie's storytelling style. I thought it was a really fun idea. The language aspect of the book is probably the most interesting thing about it. It is set in Belgium. I liked having a different European city and the mainland to explore, and Sophie does explore a little bit throughout her daily routine. She does talk a little bit about the way in which Belgium is a little bit diverse in terms of who lives there, the languages that they speak, the fact that she's learning Flemish, I believe it is, and other things. I really liked that about the setting. The story that Sophie tells is a little bit straightforward, and I did want, I was kind of expecting like a different layer of something to happen there, but on the whole, I really did enjoy Sophie Someone. The language aspect of it is definitely, it was enough to keep me entertained throughout, so really enjoyed that one. Next up, I wanted to talk to you about 2 nonfiction books that I've been reading this year. Both coincidentally are written by British authors and both cover aspects of mental illness. The first one I wanted to talk to you about is this one. It's called Mind Your Head by Juno Dawson, and it has with advice from Dr. Olivia Hewitt and illustrated by Gemma Corral. This is quite a thin overview to different mental illnesses, and this is aimed at a young adult sort of teen audience. Juno Dawson is no stranger to writing these sort of nonfiction guides for teenagers and young people. This book is gay is amazing. I kind of went into this book with really high expectations. Mental health is definitely something that I feel very strongly about, so I really wanted this to be amazing, and I think that it does a great job of covering different aspects of mental illness. It really is. It really just goes over all the different types of mental illness. I mean, you can sort of see a little bit on the front here, addiction, depression, stress, anxiety, self-harm, alcohol. It does cover everything in this sort of spectrum of mental illness. It has these wonderful illustrations from Gemma Corral. It has other advice from the psychologist, Dr. Olivia Hewitt. Juno Dawson just writes in a really friendly, approachable way. She kind of feels like you're talking to like a really cool big sister or a really young aunt sort of person. She writes in this really friendly, approachable way that that I think this book really needed, and it's together with the illustrations, the chatty style, the advice from a professional. There are these case studies that of other people who are going through these different types of mental illness, who write in about their experiences, and that is also quite helpful. I think that my only flaw with this book is that I wanted there to be just a little bit more to it. I know that there's only so much that can be done within a nonfiction guide, but it did feel a little bit like it was just sort of glossing the surface of some things, and I did want it to go a little bit deeper. Another nonfiction book that I've read this year so far is Reasons to Stay Alive by Haig. This is sort of a self-help guide / memoir about Haig's own experiences with anxiety and depression. He talks a great deal about a mental breakdown that happened in his early 20s and the impact that had on himself and his family, his relationships, and also the effects that has had in the way that he lives the rest of his life, I guess. He talks more in detail about anxiety, about depression, different treatments for different things. The chapters are quite small. And it's quite a slim book. It didn't take me very long to get through this one. I found some of the historical elements to be quite interesting. I really enjoyed Haig's own experience, like the little bits that he remembers. I thought that they were very emotional. The little snippets here and there of other things related to the same topic, but outside his own experiences, were really interesting as well. There were parts of it that made me feel a little bit uneasy. In one section of the book, Haig is very anti-pills for treating depression and anxiety, and while I did feel like he did say explicitly this is his own personal preference, I did feel like it walked the line of being something that I could feel comfortable about. Like it was probably just a little bit too much against pills and medication for me specifically, but I did but aside from that, I did really enjoy this book. Now, the next two books that I picked up to read are both YA again, and both cover topics of mental illness as well. The first I want to talk to you about is Underwater by Marisa Reichardt. This is about a girl who has anxiety and agoraphobia. She went through something quite traumatic, and because of it, she's now afraid to leave her home. She has panic attacks at the thought of leaving. She has a lot of anxiety and guilt over her part in what happened. She has a little brother who is absolutely adorable. I loved her relationship with her brother. She lives with her mother, and her family is very supportive of her situation. And while a boy does move in next door that she finds quite attractive, and she does end up becoming friends with, what I loved about this book is that the romance element of the book isn't at the forefront of Underwater. At the forefront is definitely her therapy and her working towards being okay again, towards living a life that she feels happy with, and that includes leaving her house in order to see her little brother in his school play. I think that some of the more emotional elements of the story definitely included her relationships with her mother, her estranged relationship with her father, and definitely between her and her little brother. I think that is at the heart of this story, as well, I think, as well as her own guilt and her working through the fact that she isn't to blame for things that happened in her past. And the fifth and final book that I wanted to talk to you about today is this book, When We Collided by Emery. The book is about two people, Vivi and Jonah, and Vivi is this full of life character. She's into art and wacky clothes, and she has bipolar disorder. She meets Jonah, this small town boy. He's got 4 brothers and sisters. His father has just left, and his mother is dealing with some serious depression. She's really incapable of looking after her children at the moment, and a lot of the responsibility of the younger children in the family restaurant rests on Jonah and his other older brother and sister. I really, really loved everything about this book. I loved Jonah and his family, especially his relationship with the littler ones. His involvement in the family restaurant is really interesting. I love Vivi and the everything that and delving into Vivi's past, things that have happened with her friendship group in Seattle before she moved to this little town. I loved her interest in art and fashion, and the ways, and I felt like her manic episodes were handled really well as exploring her low points as well. I love that this story involved so much hope that things would get better, that more is out there for everyone. I read this book, and I was worried that certain things would happen that didn't. I did. I really love this book. I loved Jonah and Vivi's relationship together. The sentence that the title came into made me weep, and the whole last quarter of the book was so sweet and sad that it made me bawl in public. I loved this book. I want more characters with bipolar disorder to be portrayed like Vivi. So that's it from me today. Those are some of the books that I've been reading in 2016. Do let me know what you've been reading and loving lately. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.